information that has been carefully researched, information that reflects current thinking. With the increasing demands of daily living, health is often taken for granted. Allow me then to congratulate you on wanting to increase your health awareness and understanding. In doing so, you assume more responsibility for your life, health, and well-being.
You know, many years ago I was hiking up in the Adirondack Mountains of upstate New York. Keep on this gentleman and his dog. Man's name was Franklin. It was in the fall. The days were cool and the nights were cold. Franklin was climbing Mount Marcy, the highest peak in the Adirondacks. Not an easy climb. And before he climbed Mount Marcy, he climbed every other major peak in the region. Guy was 65 years old. Now, I'm not saying that 65 is old, but this guy didn't seem a day over 45. Can you imagine that now? 45 at 65. Was I impressed? You better believe it. What I had just seen there was the result of regular exercise and sound nutrition. So, here I am today, all wrapped up in my own quest for longevity and energy. But you know, it really isn't a quest at all. No faraway places, no tests of courage, and certainly no fountain of youth. No, it's more of a quest for knowledge. Knowledge of the food we eat and how it relates to the digestive system. Why? Because if you keep a healthy digestive system, there are many other health benefits which just follow along naturally. Now, I'm not just talking about a longer life here. I'm talking about the quality of life, about a vibrant life, and about reducing your risk for diet-related conditions. Conditions such as cancer, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and diverticular disease. In this program, we will explore the human body, beginning with a basic understanding of the digestive system and how it functions. The colon, or large intestine, will be of special significance because the key to a healthy digestive system is a healthy colon. Proper nutrition, efficient waste elimination, regular exercise, and of course an appropriate lifestyle all contribute to a healthy colon. In fact, given all the above considerations, you might say that colon health is total health. The digestive system is a long tube, an elaborate tube with accessory organs. As you probably know, digestion begins in the mouth with the chewing of food and its mixing with saliva. What may not be quite so obvious is that the saliva contains digestive enzymes which immediately begin to break down the carbohydrates within the food itself. When you swallow, the food passes through the esophagus and down into the stomach. Now, when a piece of food enters the stomach, it doesn't just dissolve immediately, as you might think. On the contrary, as more food is swallowed, it pushes against the pieces already there, outwardly against the stomach wall, And in this way, a certain amount of layering takes place. The action of churning, combined with the gastric juices and the digestive enzymes, creates from the food a semi-liquid condition known as chyme. The lower stomach moves with a wave-like action to inject chyme into the upper part of the small intestine known as the duodenum. The duodenum is the uppermost section of the small intestine. Now this is the liver. One of the chief digestive functions of the liver is the production of bile, which is stored in the gallbladder. Bile, as it turns out, is essential for the digestion of fats. This is the pancreas, which plays an important role in the regulation of blood sugar levels. It also secretes digestive enzymes. Ducts from the gallbladder and the liver join the pancreatic duct in injecting both bile and digestive enzymes directly into the duodenum. This combination helps to complete the breakdown of foods, which are then absorbed by the small intestine. If you were to isolate a section of small intestine and then looked inside, you would find many folds. These help to increase the surface area for the absorption of nutrients. Taking a closer look at one of these folds, you would see many finger-like projections called villi. Looking closer yet, you would discover that the surface of each villus is made up of very special cells. Special because they absorb nutrients and then pass them on to the supporting tissue. The absorbing surface is constantly being replaced. Note that at the bases of villi, new cells are formed. Gradually, they move upwards, pushing along older cells which then drop off and are carried away. As a matter of fact, the entire inner surface of the digestive tract is in a constant state of renewal. The cells lining the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestine, and the colon replace themselves every 1 to 2 days. A fact made all the more remarkable when one realizes that the surface area being replaced here is equal to 1/2 the area of a basketball court. Now let's take a look at how the small intestine moves while it is breaking down and absorbing food. When the intestine closes down on itself, this is called segmentation. This mixes the contents in the intestine for more complete absorption. This is peristalsis, a wave-like motion which moves chyme through the intestine. Between and during these waves is when nutrient absorption is greatest. Finally, the undigested and indigestible liquid contents of the small intestine are emptied into the large intestine, also known as the colon. The large intestine, or colon, begins right there. Notice how the colon rises, comes across, down, and out. In the right colon, much mixing occurs. In fact, it isn't uncommon to find the leftovers of 2 or even 3 meals being mixed in the right colon. Within the colon at large, huge populations of bacteria go to work, breaking down waste. Then water, certain electrolytes, and vitamin K are absorbed. As the contents of the colon move on, feces are formed. Well, now that you have a basic understanding of the digestive system, let's have a look at the colon itself. Exploring the large intestine is like stepping into an entirely different world. There are over 100 different kinds of bacteria. Because it is their job to break down the leftovers of digestion, what you eat ultimately determines the kinds and numbers of bacteria in your colon. Now, these bacteria in your colon are beneficial to you. They coexist with each other and should do so in harmony with the body. However, certain populations of bacteria produce byproducts which are toxic and even highly carcinogenic or cancer-causing. Let's use an example to illustrate this. Two leftovers of meat digestion are dietary sterols and bile acids. Certain bacteria inherent in your colon, while in themselves are not a problem, do convert these leftovers into potent carcinogens. The result can be toxic. Given that waste, by its very nature, is toxic, what can you do to reduce the effects of toxic waste on your colon? Let's have a look at 3 safe and effective ways. Reduce the amount of toxin, dilute the toxin, and reduce the amount of time that toxins spend in your colon. You can reduce the amount of toxins simply by eating less meat, especially meats which are high in fat. Instead, eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. The crucifers, or members of the mustard family, are especially beneficial. Cabbage, cauliflower, broccoli, mustard greens, Brussels sprouts, rutabaga and turnips, and kale. Now, to better understand the value of these cruciferous vegetables, let's divide the bacteria in the colon into 2 separate groups. Those whose byproducts are non-toxic, and those whose byproducts are toxic. Now let's label these groups good and bad. What's important is the ratio of good to bad bacteria in your colon. If your diet is high in fat and refined carbohydrates and low in fresh fruits and vegetables, then the ratio looks like this. If, on the other hand, your diet is low in fat and refined carbohydrates and high in fresh fruits and vegetables, then the ratio looks like this. By eating these cruciferous vegetables, you are actually promoting the growth of the good bacteria, simply because they thrive on the leftovers of crucifer digestion. But that's not all. The good bacteria also create within the colon a slightly acidic environment, which the bad bacteria cannot tolerate. Now, what about the second and third method here of reducing the effects of toxin in the colon? Both of these are accomplished with fiber. The next demonstration will illustrate that. This is one of the more popular fiber supplements. It is ground up whole psyllium seed. Let's add a little bit of water and see what happens. Almost immediately, psyllium begins to absorb water, expanding and becoming soft and slippery. Now, suppose this represents concentrated toxic waste in your colon. By adding the fiber and water mixture, we dilute the waste. In addition to dilution, fiber adds mass to feces by absorbing water. Fiber adds bulk by expanding. Fiber also adds lubrication. Together they add up to reduce the time the toxic waste spends in your colon. Without adequate fiber, toxic waste can spend up to an average of 3 or 4 times longer in your colon than necessary. Over a lifetime, that can add up to a lot of potential damage. The sort of damage that can increase your risk for colon cancer and many other bowel disorders. In 1988, the Surgeon General of the United States put out a report called Nutrition and Health. This report cites diverticular disease as a major diet-related condition in the United States, noting that frequency increases with age and up to 70% of people between the ages of 40 and 70 may be affected. In fact, this disease is responsible for approximately 200,000 hospitalizations every year. Worldwide, the figures are even more staggering. Why? Because in the so-called developed countries of the world, such as the United States, Canada, and most of Europe, diets are very high in the refined carbohydrates, such as white flour and processed sugar, but very, very low in fiber. I want to take you inside the colon now, right along here, and see firsthand the consequences of a low-fiber diet. We will see a classic example of diverticular disease and compare it to the healthy colon. We will also see just how fiber helps to keep your colon clean. So let's begin. The colon has circular and longitudinal muscles. Circular muscles run around the colon and are continuous throughout its length. Longitudinal muscles, on the other hand, are concentrated in 3 bands. The colon billows out according to the contraction or relaxation of the longitudinal muscles. Notice how thin the colon wall is, and then consider what it does. The colon is a delicate organ, not a steel pipe. And here we are. Now, you know the colon runs straight across the midsection of the body. This is where we are. In here you can see the longitudinal muscles. One runs right along here, and another runs right along here. Between them lies the billow feature. This section represents the normal, healthy colon. Now over here we have muscle thickening and distortion of the billow. This is the first classic feature of diverticular disease. A second feature is this pocket or diversion in the colon wall. It's interesting to note that the pockets occur between the muscle folds, suggesting that the muscular thickening comes first. In other words, people are simply not born with pockets in their colons. Diverticular disease does not just happen, it can take a lifetime to develop. Most folks have it and don't even realize they have it until complications occur. Now, the current thinking on this disease and its causes lies in simple physics, and the problem begins with a low-fiber diet. A low-fiber diet yields an abnormally low-bulk stool. This forces the colon to close in on itself in order to form and move the feces. As a result, great pressure is exerted on the colon wall. Over time, muscle thickening and distortion develops so as to severely limit the clear passage through the colon. This can slow down the normal passage of feces or even stop it altogether. Now, what about this pocket here? Why did it form? Well, the colon wall is weakest where the blood vessels penetrate this muscle just below the longitudinal muscle. Extra pressure on the colon wall can cause these weaker areas to literally balloon out and form a pocket or diverticula. Additional pressures may result from constipated feces or even gas. Do these pockets really matter? Oh, yes, they do. Feces can build up and remain trapped for months and even years at a time. And as these feces remain trapped, there is an increased risk for infection. The feces also interfere with the normal replacement of cells lining the colon wall. Why don't we take a slice of this pocket and view it under the microscope back at the lab? This is a low-power view showing the trapped feces. If we increase our magnification, you will notice many tiny spots. These are actually antibodies sent out by the body to fight the infection resulting from the trapped feces. Well, I don't know about you, but if I had a buildup of toxic waste in my colon, I'd want it out, and I'd want it out right now. I might even consider a colon cleansing program. One effective technique would involve the use of psyllium fiber and plenty of water. This combination loosens up dry feces, much like soaking away encrusted food on your dinner plates. Now, less conventional Colon cleansing methods are not advised, except under medical supervision. These would include colonic irrigations or high enemas. The colonic irrigation involves passing a warm solution of water back up into the colon. Now, there are at least 3 serious problems with this. First, too much solution or too much pressure can cause damage to the colon. Second, serious infection may result from unsanitary procedures or instruments. And third, populations of bacteria in the colon may be thrown out of balance. Because you don't know the condition of your colon, be sure to consult your doctor before starting any program for constipation. What I have here is a model representation of a constipated stool. Notice how it is segmented, or made up of these smaller pieces. In order to form these smaller pieces, the colon must actually close in on itself, and that's bad. The feces become dry and compact, and because they tend to bunch up, become very difficult to pass. This, on the other hand, is a model representation of a non-constipated stool. Now, it may be segmented to some degree, or not at all. Comparing this piece with the segmented piece, it becomes immediately obvious that this piece contains the more bulk. The stools are loose and moist, and can be therefore passed with little or no effort. Now, there will of course be times when you feel the need for relief of constipation. Just don't go reaching for stimulant laxatives. Did you know that stimulant laxatives are perhaps the most misused over-the-counter medication? Well, that's not so surprising, in consideration of some of the dangerous misconceptions regarding their use. For example, some people think that the use of laxatives is a good way to clean out their colon. That's false. The colon should be kept clean through the soaking action of adequate fiber and plenty of water. A second misconception is that laxatives cause weight loss. False again. Laxatives can cause loss of water, but not loss of fat. Third misconception, that the regular use of laxatives is okay. That's false. The fact is that the regular use of stimulant laxatives is a surefire way to kill your colon. You see, the problem with stimulant laxatives is they stimulate your bowels to move through manipulation of your nervous system. And in that way, the nervous system which serves the colon can be permanently damaged. And what's worse, other areas of the digestive tract may be affected as well. So, if laxatives are so dangerous, how come we can get them without a prescription? Good question. Oh, they have warning labels on the ends of the boxes. But you ever read one? It goes in part like this. Excessive or prolonged use of laxatives can lead to dependency on laxatives. Now that doesn't scare me in the least. The warning label should read like this. Excessive or prolonged use of stimulant laxatives can permanently damage your nervous system while destroying muscle tone in your small and large intestine. Dependency on laxatives will likely result. Sure, laxatives are quick, but they are also temporary and potentially dangerous. Here are 6 simple and safe ways to end constipation. First, consume more fiber and avoid all refined carbohydrates. Drink more water throughout the day. Fiber without sufficient water can actually constipate. Get regular aerobic exercise. Learn to relax. Stress can affect the regular wave patterns of the digestive system. Check medications which may constipate. And finally, never ignore the urge to have a bowel movement. By resisting this urge, feces are merely forced back up into the colon, where the colon, of course, continues to absorb water, and the feces become harder and drier, and the next bowel movement increasingly difficult. When nature calls, you answer. Answer as though your life depended on it, because in a very real sense, it does. Each year, in the United States and Canada, well over 130,000 new cases of colon cancer are reported. It seems that we live in a world where nearly everything causes cancer. And if this makes you think that there's not much you can do about colon cancer, think again, because you can do something. Assessing your risk, early detection, and prevention are your best lines of defense. Of course, what you eat can also be very important in preventing not only colon cancer, but many other types of cancer as well. Let's have a look at some very specific dietary guidelines. Increase dietary fiber. Eat more green and yellow vegetables, and don't forget the crucifers. Avoid burnt or browned material, because these cause carcinogens. Avoid smoked and salt foods. Most lunch meats fall under this category. And stay away from foods that are full of nitrates. Eat foods fresh, and be sure to use appropriate preservative and storage techniques. Adequate food storage is often overlooked because food can be rancid and still taste okay. And lastly, lower your intake of oils and fats. Your local health food store can be a good source of information. Ask them about vitamins A, C, and E. Easy to remember because they spell ACE. And ask about selenium. Together, these 4 supplements can be a very important way to rid your body of carcinogens, which, as you know, cause cancer. In order to assess your risk for colon cancer, ask yourself these following questions. Do I have any of the following symptoms? Rectal bleeding or blood in the stool, recent change in bowel habits, narrow pencil-thin stool, unexplained weight loss, anemia from a low blood count, am I age 45 or older, have I ever had colorectal cancer, do I have a history of colonic polyps, do I have blood relatives who have had colon cancer or extensive polyps throughout the colon? Do I have an inflammatory bowel disease? If you answered yes to any of the above questions, then you are at higher risk and you should contact your doctor immediately. What it really boils down to is this. Whether you are at high risk or not, you should make cancer screening and prevention a regular part of your health program. And why not? It's easy, it's inexpensive, and it works. For instance, exercise alone may greatly reduce your risk for all kinds of cancers combined. Now, this exercise, while it needs to be aerobic, need not be strenuous. It can be as easy as walking. These are just some of the fiber foods available to you, and there are 2 types of fiber to be found in these foods, soluble and insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber absorbs plenty of water and becomes soft and slippery. Insoluble fiber, on the other hand, absorbs practically no water at all and provides what we commonly refer to as roughage. Now, the proportion of soluble to insoluble fiber varies from food to food. And as you require both types of fiber, it's important